Our next speaker is Jill Barnard. Jill is the Chief Financial Officer at Televerde. In this position, Jill is focused on strategic movement and fast company growth. She joined Televerde with 30 years of executive experience across several industries. She holds a Bachelor's of Business Management from Western Michigan University. Jill is passionate about animals and volunteers with several organizations. She is also an avid world traveler. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Jill Barnard. We've talked about this a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, Jill Barnard runs a company that really is an amazing organization. And what they do is so powerful. Can you just describe what Televerde is and what the mission is?
Sure. We're a 25-year-old company that is in the middle of a pivot, and it's really exciting. Used to be what I would call center, dial for dollars, right? But now we're pivoting to a marketing technology company because you have no choice. You actually cannot get anybody to pick up the phone anymore, right? I won't. Refuse. And so we have to pivot, but yet our women that actually talk on the phone are in prison. And these women are, on average, employed by us 4.5 years. So if you think of a call center model, how often do you have an employee who stays for 4.5 years, who actually understands the product because they've had years and years of experience bringing very complicated sales through the phone and enticing people to buy products?
Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit more? Can you tell where do you get your employees from?
We are in 2 prisons currently. We're in Perryville, out here in Goodyear, and we also have a location in Indiana, and we're getting ready to broaden in Indiana. They're opening a 2nd prison, and so we'll be in both in Indiana, and we are opening in the Her Majesty's prison in the UK in September.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the social impact in terms of recidivism rates, employment after prison. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Arizona faces a 74% recidivism. Our metrics by somebody who is employed by Televerde, only on the inside, not necessarily on the outside. We have less than 7.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's, we hear it every day in the news, and I read it this morning. It's out there now, the opioid epidemic. How is, can you share how Televerde's mission is so vital to that social condition? Absolutely.
That women, that is more than 50% of the reason you usually find a woman in prison, is it initiated with drugs. And then they did something that to support their habit that landed them in prison. And so that is the majority of the offenders that you see. And there is a horrifying statistic of over 65% of women that land in prison, their children will land in prison. And so this drug epidemic has to be broken in order to stop this cycle that continuously is happening. And the stories that we hear are beyond powerful, because part of employing someone, when they get out, it's very challenging. These women have been away from their family, away from their children, and out of society, and they're shunned. And so they're embarrassed. Women take this very personally. And so we have a nonprofit that helps during the transition time, which is why we have such a low recidivism rate. We respect that it isn't easy when they walk out. We employ most at our corporate office that want that opportunity and stay in Phoenix, but not all. And so you have to have that connection to make sure that they can hold their sobriety in the most actually transition time of their life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive global opportunity for, I think, Televerde to apply their mission and their method. Do you believe that PE firms, connect the dots to see how doing well, meaning return on investment, can align with doing good, meaning giving back to the community? Do you think the PE community understands that?
I do. We talk often at Televerde that there's nothing more powerful than something whose time has come. And if you look out over all of the companies now, they are passionate about having social responsibility. In fact, many millennials demand it. This is part of the hiring process, that they want to be part of something bigger. And I firmly believe that there are enough financing opportunities in the PE community that want to be a part of that they want an opportunity to check that box.
Yeah, so let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about objective data collection. From your perspective, what are the critical must-haves in place that business owners can implement on limited budgets for objective data collection?
I've done 3 PE deals, and so the next one that I do will be my 4th. So data is your friend. There's 2 sides of it, right? You need to demonstrate that you can control your business. And as Craig said, it's a story. More times than not, you're looking at a PE company, and it's like dating, right? But you're not super attractive in that moment. You might have some challenges. And so it's super important that you have data to support your story. And recently at Televerde, I cannot afford a contact center software. It's $800,000. It's on my wish list. And yet I need to know how often are people picking up the phone. This is vital that I know whether you're hiding or whether you're picking up the phone, what's your conversion rate, right? What's your right party contact? These are levers that we have to be able to pull in our business. And I had nothing. I had $0. And so I tapped into a software that we have to have dashboards for our customers. And then I grabbed a gal in orange, and she wrote programming for me. So now I have all of these statistics on wallboards all throughout our call centers for free.
Yeah, that's powerful. So there's ways to get the data, and it's important to the story. So that's the point. So can you share some details on your previous PE experience? Can we talk about valuations? How did you defend it? How did you come to it? Did you get a lot of pushback on previous valuations?
In the 3 that I've done, 2 were complete exit strategies.
Okay.
And the valuations were everything. They had great data. It was so easy to look at EBITDA and be able to compute off of there. It was really kind of a no-brainer. The interesting one that I did was a company that had overextended for very rapid expansion. And then, as we all remember, here in Arizona, the market fell out, and his traditional funding was taken away. So now ugly is ugly. And so putting together a deal like that, you know, the valuation, much to like Craig said, you kind of have to take what you can get. Mm-hmm. And so I've been on both sides of that coin where EBITDA can drive, and as long as you have good reporting, and I recommend everybody get to that point where don't be afraid of employing somebody who can create metrics on a monthly basis and an annual audit on the finance side, because you're setting yourself up for what they're going to be able to do trend reporting. It's like the CIA and the FBI come all at one time during due diligence. And when you have that kind of financial information, if you have a great EBITDA, it's so fast and easy, and you have a lot of opportunities. But if you're not, then it's a much harder valuation because you're ugly and EBITDA is meaningless, and so you have to sell a story.
Yep. So tell us about the story you sold to your staff to keep them there after these acquisitions.
That's really tough because, boy, rumor mill, panic, buttons, all of that, you know, really happens. And I think the old idea that PE money, everyone's going to lose their job unless you were named in the document. I think we've done a great job of putting that aside. And something that I do is really let the key people know by using a very friendly employment document, because I'm just showing you how valued you are. And it gives people much better confidence because change is hard, and people, rather than ask, would rather go find another job. So you have to be ahead of the curve of that story.
Okay, thank you. And from your CFO perspective, I'm really interested in this idea of augmenting equity with subordinated debt. Did you ever take subordinated debt, and were you ever offered it from either a mezzanine or a traditional PE firm?
Yep, I have done both deals with and without, and it's hard. There's no way around it. But I was successful in actually taking out a PE company, and we had an exorbitant amount of mezz debt. And then, of course, they have the piece. So now you have a put in place that in order to take them out, you have to get rid of the put. But it's one of those things that if you have to take it in order to establish your rapid growth, and you have a good, solid plan in place, and cash is king. And so if you can monitor and pay that down and go into it knowing that, I think it can be a great tool to make sure that you can grow even faster.
Do you remember the rate of that?
Yeah, it was ugly. It was 11.5%, and it was $15 million, and it was terrible. And paying that off was hard, and then facing the put, because during the growth, right, the put becomes more valuable, and so every day that put's getting bigger and bigger, and it's hard. There's no two ways about it.
How did you exit out of that sub-debt?
It just was an absolute cash play, and then we were prettier, and so we could get some more traditional debt. And it really was a Band-Aid. And it was such a useful tool for that entrepreneur to be able to get through an extremely ugly place in business and then ultimately put a plan in place where he now is sitting pretty for his exit plan.
Well, it builds the case for, hey, you've been able to service 11.5% debt, and now, if coming at half price debt, it looks like you can do that. You've done this. And I just, from an owner standpoint, it looks like if you take subordinated debt, you're keeping more of your company, and it's an easier way to do that. Let's get into myths and truths. So there's 5 myths and truths of PE funding. So PE is a win-lose game. Investors always win. Owners always lose. True or false from your experience?
False. No way. I think that it is an amazing tool, and I think the important factor is you go into it with eyes wide open. And don't get dazzled by the dollars. Know your value, do your work, and know what you need from the transaction before you start. Because I've seen too many people just seeing dollar signs and then don't always think their way through. But everyone needs to make money, both sides of it. It's not win-lose.
Yep, that's valuations are the only consideration when deal shopping.
I don't agree. Like in Televerde's case, I know there's going to be somebody out there who is going to want to support a business that is oddly very profitable and yet at the same time for purpose. It's a whole new level of responsibility when I get up every day. It's not just shareholder value. That's there, but you have to balance that with our intention is to help 10,000 more people in less than 10 years. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, every day you get up and it's a whole different view. And I know that there's somebody out there who wants to be a part of that. Yeah. And we're all going to make money doing a deal like that, but they're going to want that extra thing.
Yeah, I have this idea that, we have this opioid epidemic, and you're creating an epidemic of hope for the people that are, in that crisis. So PE investors don't add value because they have not been operators. True or false?
False. I think that another person in the room, it really helps entrepreneurs because multiple times they can bring a view that you don't necessarily see. And I always enjoyed the meetings when the PE firms would come in, and some were not great. I've worked with some that didn't offer a lot, but others that they had great viewpoints, great connections. I really believe at the end of the day, if you're providing consistent, accurate data, then in the format they want, you don't get to pick it. Just live with it. And then they leave you alone.
Last question. What advice or book would you give for an entrepreneur seeking PE funding?
Advice. You have to make sure that you're ahead of the curve of your data before you start the transaction. Know what they want, learn. You have to have financials. You have to understand the trending that they're going to want to see, and you have to have the backup to prove it, both financially and operationally. You have to demonstrate what's happening financially. More importantly, as an owner, you have to be able to demonstrate you can control your business and that you know how, that it wasn't luck that got you in that position.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about sort of those systems and how to do that in the other panel. Thank you very much, Jill.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Thank you, Jill.